Well, we're back again, aren't we? With a more recent game this time, but still the same Sonic shenanigans you come to expect at this point. I know I said Sonic Adventure 2 was next, don't worry, it's coming soon. I just figured, hey, new game, why not strike while the iron's hot, so to speak. So, Sonic Colors Ultimate, right? That's one of my top 10 favorite icebreakers. This game's been getting quite an interesting reputation, to say the least. From before I even got to play it, Digital Deluxe buyers were having some extremely interesting results. While I wanted to remain impartial before the game came out, it was definitely causing a scene. Now before we get into all that though, I'm sort of in a unique position for this video since, unlike a lot of people who are probably talking about the game right now, I haven't talked about Colors on its own yet, so this video is sort of gonna be a double header. Tackling Sonic Colors to see how it stacks up compared to the other two Boost games preceding and coming after it, because Sonic Forces isn't competition. And then taking a look at Sonic Colors Ultimate to see how well it does at being a remaster. I think you all know the answer at this point, but please just bear with me. Although, if you don't care about what I have to say about the original, you're free to skip to the timestamp in the description to get right to where I talk about Sonic Colors Ultimate. But I personally do recommend hearing what I have to say on the original so that you get a bit more context and things generally flow better. With that, let's get right into Sonic Colors. Now, I got some history with this game right here. I got Sonic Colors the Christmas right after it came out. I mean, how could I resist? I got pretty much every Sonic game I could on the Wii when I was a kid, so when I heard this new one was coming out, I had to get it. As such, yes, I do have dreaded nostalgia with this game, which in a lot of Sonic fans' minds disqualifies my opinion, but we'll try our best to move onward. I'm not one to succumb to nostalgia bias anyhow. I should mention alongside the Wii game, we also got a DS version. Spoiler warning, I'm not going to be talking about the DS version here. I'd rather save that for a look back at all the Sonic Rush games. For now though, I'll say, I haven't played it in quite a few years and I don't remember much of it, but I do remember having fun, which I think is what counts. Sonic Colors, I think, is a very important title in the Sonic series. Not only did it bring about a lot of changes to the franchise, but also helped solidify Sonic being dug out of the pit 06 landed him in. Sonic Unleashed was a very good first attempt, but the Werehog didn't gel well with most people, and as such, Sonic Colors was the logical next step. New locations, new gimmick, focus on the Boost gameplay people liked in Unleashed. Perfect. As for changes it brought, it's the first game to bring about a much lighter tone. I mean, we've had games like Heroes before this that had lighter stories as well. I guess Sonic Colors is a lot more jokey, I guess. It's obvious that it feels like it was aiming for a younger demographic. I don't think this is inherently a bad decision. In fact, I don't even think it was bad for this game in specific. The main problem is that it had a ripple effect that caused problems for later games in the series. On top of this, we had one of the most controversial changes, both at the time and a change that is still talked about today. The dreaded recasting of voice actors, with the only one staying being the voice for Eggman. The main one still being discussed frequently is Sonic being voiced by Roger Craig Smith, although me being the most observant Sonic fan I was as a kid, I didn't notice the change at all. Personally, I think his Sonic voice fluctuates based on how much I like it. For example, I didn't really like how Sonic sounded in Lost Worlding Forces, but I do like him in the Boom TV show, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, and to jump the gun a bit here, I think he was good in this game as well. It's still hard to tell though, considering Lost Worlding Forces were the ones I thought sounded the worst, and those were also the ones that had writing I didn't exactly like, so it's difficult to determine, but I will say I don't hate his Sonic interpretation as much as others, and I do greatly respect him as a voice actor. That's enough pre-game stuff, I think, so let's get into the game, starting with the story, and I'm just gonna get through this real quick since there isn't much to talk about. Basically, Eggman set up this interstellar amusement park in space. Thinking it to be trouble, Sonic goes to see what's up by taking the convenient transportation system, and also takes Tails with him. Tails doesn't think there's an evil plot going on, for some reason, but after a while we find Eggman trying to enslave these aliens called Wisps to harness their power to make a mind control beam or something. To round up as many aliens as possible, he chains multiple planets to a central one, all to make them part of his park and to get him more energy. Now Sonic's goal is to destroy all the generators on each planet to release them from Eggman's control, all while saving as many Wisps as he can along the way. It's very simple stuff, but not bad. They try to occasionally sprinkle in some extra stuff in the story, but it never really works, like Tails needing to make a translator to understand the Wisps, but it has a few bugs in it which really feels like it just serves to make some bad jokes about them misunderstanding what the Wisps are saying. And when later in the game, Eggman tries out some of his mind control beam on Tails, and it just goes nowhere since in the exact same cutscene the beam runs out of juice and we fight a normal boss. Could have had a Tails boss here, but I guess not, and now this plot point is kinda pointless. A complaint that I'm sure won't return in any Sonic games after this in the same fashion, I'm sure. There is one kinda cool part in the story towards the end, where we see Eggman draining the Wisps of their energy ends up turning them into Nega-Wisps, which actually leads to the creation of the Frenzy Wisp and in the DS version the Void Wisp. Despite it being a neat part of the narrative, it's only super referenced in this one cutscene, and all the Nega-Wisps are just turned back to normal in the end, so the same function could have pretty much been served by them just being normal Wisps like the rest of them, so whatever, I guess. Now, there's one element of the story that fans detest this game for. As I said earlier, the game tries to throw more jokes around. Now, I know humor is subjective, but personally, I didn't find the jokes the game tried to give us to be outright horrible all the time. More so just hit and miss, like you got your Baldy McNose hairs, but you also got stuff like this.
The boss man said to wrangle every piece of this mess. When you consider what we're doing from a robot's point of view, it's actually pretty gruesome.
Don't think about it.
Like, come on, that's pretty good if you ask me. I feel like a big problem, excluding the parts where the joke is hey funny word or hey funny misunderstandings of words, it's when they try to make a joke and then have it go on for way too long. One of the examples that comes to mind immediately is when Eggman says, "This time, nothing will stop me," and Sonic says, "Who are you calling nothing?" Pretty serviceable joke, nothing mind-blowing, but not bad. What kills it, though, is the segment right after where Orbot just stands there explaining what the joke is, which goes on for like twice as long as the joke itself. And that's all the story here. Yeah, Colors definitely cares about gameplay over story, which I know might be a letdown to some, but personally I can roll with that. So let's see what we got here. As I said earlier, this game is basically the next step of what Unleashed had to offer. Although there are some setbacks due to you having the option to play the game with the Weir mode on its side, which, if anyone actually does that, they should be thrown in jail. This game's a little more limited in what you can do in each stage, as in, you can't quick step or drift on command now. Instead, they'll be regulated to these certain sections when the little icon appears at the bottom of the screen. Not a huge loss, and the game is designed around you not always having access to them. But I did notice some areas where you couldn't quickstep that would have been nice to have the option. Mainly these little sections in Sweet Mountain, I think, could have benefited from it. The boost also obviously returns, functioning slightly differently. Instead of collecting rings to fill it up, you'll collect white wisps, which can be found mostly in capsules, but robots also sometimes give you wisps as well. You definitely don't get boosts as often as in Unleashed, or as often as any of the other boost games, really. But since this game does have a little bit more of an emphasis on platforming, which I'll get into in a bit, it isn't terrible since you'll obviously not want to be boosting around on small platforms typically. To get a little ahead of myself here, Colors Ultimate adds this mechanic where if you do a homing attack just as this green circle around the reticle appears, you'll get a small bonus to your boost gauge, which means that you'll have a lot more in reserve or ready for use than you did in the original. And while, as I said, I don't have a problem with having less boost, I do quite like the new feature the remaster adds. We also got some new moves to play with. Sonic's now got a double jump, which is exactly what it sounds like. Works good, and I found it pretty helpful, although I did notice Sonic's normal jump almost feels like a double jump itself. It goes up, hangs for like a split second, and then goes up the rest of the way. It isn't horrible and it didn't mess me up, it just is a bit weird. We also obviously have Wisps, Cyan Laser, Yellow Drill, Orange Rocket, Pink Spikes, Green Hover, Blue Cube, and Purple Frenzy, all of which sound like Starburst flavors. The laser shoots you forward and allows you to hit these crystals to be bounced around somewhere else, or these teleportation sticks to also be taken somewhere. You can only aim up and down in 2D and left and right in 3D. Probably one of my favorite Wisps to use, it's just very snappy and quick. Drill's also a fun one, you dig underground to find secrets and stuff, just you gotta make sure the meter doesn't run out while you're underground or else you die. You can also find these pipes to take you places as well. Rocket boosts you high upward, pretty self-explanatory, it's alright. Spike lets you cling onto walls and also do the spin dash to move faster, probably another one of my favorite Wisps to use. Hover lets you fly upward and use the light speed dash to go across rings, and while you go across the rings, your meter doesn't deplete, which basically makes these act as both quick and easy ways around the level, as well as routes to hidden goodies and whatnot. I like how Spike and Hover both let you use moves Sonic's had in his arsenal before, while not only repurposing them into different contexts, and also allowing you the ability to use moves while accounting for the, 3 buttons the Wii Remote had. Imagine if Boost and Lightspeed Dash were on the same button, it'd be anarchy. Cube is one of the least interesting. You stop in place and it switches these blue rings to either allow you to go through or turn them into blocks. It's a cool idea, I just wish the switch was faster, because especially the first time you use it, using Cube is so slow. It'd be a lot more fun if, let's say, the switch was a lot faster, but you had to be more on your toes about using it. Finally, we have Frenzy, which turns you into this giant rabid Pac-Man creature that devours anything on sight. The more it eats up, the more it grows, and once it gets big, it's even able to suck in rings. I like Frenzy, I just feel it'd be better if its control wasn't so annoying to deal with. Trying to turn around in 2D with it is a lot more challenging than it should be, and trying to move anywhere but straight in 3D is practically impossible. Overall though, I quite like the Wisps. I just wish it stayed as a one-game gimmick instead of being bastardized in Lost World and to a lesser extent Forces, and because of that, I still think they work the best in this game. Next, let's talk stages. We've got 6 here. Tropical Resort, Starlight Carnival, Sweet Mountain, Aquarium Park, Planet Wisp, and Asteroid Coaster. There's also Terminal Velocity, but that doesn't really count as a world since it only has one stage and a final boss. I really like all these locations. They're really creative, look great, at least in the original, and work with the amusement park theme really well. Tropical Resort is a really cool first level, showing you the ropes and letting you get your first glimpse at how the Wisps work. Starlight Carnival is this awesome run on these light roads through parade floats. There's Sweet Mountain that has you running around a ton of these giant sweet foods like jelly beans and rockets, gingerbread men along the drift curve, and giant burgers, yeah, my favorite sweet. Aquarium Park is the dedicated water level, made much better because for some reason in this game you can jump infinitely in water, not that I'm complaining. And it's only made better by you getting to use Drill to go through the water. Plus you get to see all these fish swimming around and my favorite bits, the underwater tunnels, waterfalls, and some nice oriental buildings. Planet Wisp is another really nice level. The Wisp homeworld is under construction to be turned into another theme park attraction, making you journey through the nature still remaining and up onto the construction sets spread about. Then here we have my favorite level in the game, and probably one of my favorite Sonic worlds, Asteroid Coaster, having you on these roller coasters in the middle of space, jumping between them going into the area where the Wisp energy is being harvested from with all this toxic waste flooding the area, getting to play around with the anti-gravity and blocks that move in and out of the foreground, and being able to homing attack across asteroids and jump from planet to planet. It's super good. The level design in all these worlds is also really good. Alright, well, 90% good. A bunch of the levels are super fun, but there's also definitely some filler in this game. Firstly, there's 6 acts per zone, the most out of any Sonic game, and there's some pretty obvious points where it feels like 2 smaller levels should have been combined into one big level. For example, this one part in Sweet Mountain, there's an invisible wall preventing you from going forward here, and then the next level starts where the earlier one ended. There's an even bigger example of this in Asteroid Coaster Act 1. You finish on this Saturn planet, and you can see the Act 2 tower just in the distance. In fact, with a good boost jump, you can even make your way over to it. Then there's stages that just have a lot of waiting. Starlight Carnival and Aquarium Park have these spring stages that make me fidgety with how slow they are, especially in Starlight Carnival. Tropical Resort and Sweet Mountain have these platforms that require you to stand on these buttons to make them move. Even more egregious in Sweet Mountain's case, since you have this giant elevator that you just go up, switch buttons to avoid the laser, keep going, and it's really bad. And there's also stages in both Tropical Resort and Asteroid Coaster that have levels where the whole gimmick is these lasers that make you, again, stand on buttons to move them out of the way, which thankfully you can just damage boost through them, because I'll be damned if I'm wasting any more of my life standing on these buttons or springs. Then there's the biggest criticism of this game, the overabundance of 2D, and I kind of agree. I wish there was more 3D in this game, especially since the 3D sections are some of the most memorable in the game for me. And in some cases that I especially felt in Aquarium Park and Planet Wisp, it felt like some of the 2D sections could have been converted to 3D with a little bit of creativity. You really feel this with the Wisps, since Rocket, Spike, Drill, and Cube aren't even used in 3D at all, and it isn't helped by the fact that the 2D sections can get pretty blocky at times, and I'm not just talking about when you use Cube. Overall, I don't think it majorly harms the game, I just wish there was a better 2D and 3D balance. Overall, there's easily more good than bad in this game, and the good levels are really good. It's just a little annoying when the pace is going good and then get halted by one of these pace breakers. Other than levels, we've also got bosses. I think it's a little lazy how basically the same boss is used for two different zones. Tropical Resort and Planet Wisp have the Ferris wheel, with the only difference being the platforms being round in Planet Wisp. Sweet Mountain and Aquarium Park have the same boss, except I really don't like the Aquarium Park boss for being all underwater. And Starlight Carnival and Asteroid Coaster have the best non-final boss, although it's even more lazy how in Asteroid Coaster they didn't even change the path beneath you to be different from in Starlight Carnival. We also got the final boss, which is easily the best in the game. He uses the Wisps against you, firing blocks, spike balls, and lasers, and sometimes they even combine the attacks in creative ways, like having the lasers ricochet off the cubes. Each time you hit it, you rescue a new Wisp. With the closer you get, the more the music picks up until you enter Phase 2, when the music really gets going, and then after you saved all the Wisps, you get to land this super cool final hit. And the boss is just generally really fun. I just liked it. It was a really nice spectacle, and a very enjoyable non-supersonic final boss after a long time. Alright, so now we got our final stuff, starting with our collectibles. This game introduces what will become a series staple, red rings. So basically, there's 5 of these things hidden in each level, making for 30 in each zone, minus terminal velocity, and 180 red rings in total. In this game, the reason you want to collect red rings is to open up stages in the Sonic Simulator, this weird little area where you play as these Sonic androids. I don't know, it's never explained what they are. And the levels are just these color-coded block stages with 8-bit remixes of each of the zone's music. There are 21 levels here, split into 3s, with the point of clearing these stages being to get the 7 Chaos Emeralds. When you get them all, you get to play as Supersonic, which was always Final Boss exclusive in the 3D games up to this point, making it a pretty big deal since, again, this was the first one where you could play as him in the normal stages. Apparently 06 would have been the first, since there was meant to be a rainbow gem that would have made the character super, but since it was a cool concept in Sonic 06, it got cut due to rush development. How unfortunate. Anyway, Supersonic in this game is cool, but not my preferred way to play the game. First off, you can't use Wisps at all. And the huge bonus you get for playing as him is Infinite Boost, which isn't crazy, and despite you getting a steady supply of supersonic point bonuses while he's active, he's still not going to be the best way to get the S ranks in this game. Speaking of which, the ranking system obviously returns, and honestly this might be one of my favorite ranking systems in the 3D games. Now, generally, I like when Sonic ranking systems mainly depend on you getting to the goal quickly, but I do quite like what they did with it here. In Colors, it's all about the pointage you're able to get through the stage. This comes down to multiple factors. First, any bonus points you can get can be seen on the top right, showing you what actions will reward you with bonus points for performing, with the two most important being color bonuses and the special bonuses. While using Wisps, you'll get a color bonus, meaning that you need to use Wisps as much as you can, and even when you don't need to use them anymore, you need to run the timer to get as many points as possible. The special bonuses come from picking up red rings. Once they've already been gotten, they would leave behind a ghost version, which is meant for you to get them for your S ranks. I think this new system adds a cool new way of thinking about how you go about getting the S ranks. You need to route yourself well to use as many Wisps as possible while grabbing as many red rings as you can, get a ton of normal rings along the way, and make good time as well. I know that might sound a little overwhelming, but it mainly just encourages experimentation and isn't as restrictive as it might sound. In fact, sometimes I was able to get hit multiple times and not go through the stage as fast as possible, and still clear the S rank just because I used a lot of Wisps and got all the red rings. It's definitely my favorite ranking system out of the Boost games because, personally, getting the S ranks in Unleashed was pretty annoying. Generations practically hands them to you as long as you don't die, and Forces doesn't know how to not give you an S rank. Finally, we have music, and man do I love this game's soundtrack. As is usual with Sonic games, but Colors stands out as being particularly good. There are 3 different versions of each song, and each song plays in 2 acts per zone. Tropical Resort is an iconic Sonic track if you ask me. I love the jazzy instruments of Sweet Mountain. Starlight Carnival's music sounds grand and really helps in selling the parade theming. Planet Wisp and Aquarium Park are both calming on their own, but still complement the speeding around you'll be doing. And Asteroid Coaster and Terminal Velocity are both absolutely rocking. Although it really sucks that one of the best tracks in the game is Terminal Velocity Act 2, and it lasts for like less than a minute. I would adore an extended version of that track. Each zone also has its own map theme, which I think are also really nice, my favorites being the Starlight Carnival and especially the Asteroid Coaster map themes. Overall, I still really like Sonic Colors. In fact, after revisiting the game, I think I might like it even more than I initially did. It's not perfect, but it's damn solid, and I also have a big respect for the game as it is after 06 sent general opinion of Sonic down the toilet drain, and while Unleashed did a good job of picking the ball back up, it still had problems of its own, but it was Colors that really brought Sonic back, since everybody liked this game when it came out, and for good reason. It's a really good game. It's definitely a Sonic game I could recommend to anybody, and especially to people looking to get into the series. Its challenge is very inviting, it has good replay value, and is 99% free of bullshit, making it a great entry point for newcomers. Which I imagine is exactly what Sega was thinking when they decided to give it the remastered treatment for modern platforms in the form of Sonic Colors Ultimate. Man, that was a good segue. So yeah, Sonic Colors Ultimate came out not too long ago, and it's definitely gotten a reputation for itself already. If you don't remember, a while back I gave my thoughts on the Sonic Central presentation, and didn't have the nicest things to say about the preview. In fact, I was so mad I called Tropical Resort Tropical Coast. I'm so sorry. Anyway, since I bought the physical, quite a few people who bought the digital deluxe got the game before me, and man, the things people were saying online were scathing. There were glitches everywhere, people weren't too impressed by the graphical showcase, and a lot were also disappointed by the new additions. I wanted to save my judgment until I got my hands on the game, but it was impossible to not be pretty concerned looking over what everyone was sharing, and now that I have the game in my hands, there's a lot of ground to cover, to say the least. I guess the easiest place to start would be the graphics and audio. First, on the graphics end of things, the game supports 60 FPS and 4K resolution. Alright, good so far. Nope, I've already got something to bitch about. The game only runs in 30 FPS on Switch, because we couldn't get a Wii game from 2010 to run at 60 on the Nintendo Switch. Okay then. And I don't want to hear anything about the Switch being less graphically capable than other consoles, because 1, the Switch is able to pull out some graphically great-looking titles like Mario Odyssey and Smash Ultimate, and 2, it's able to run Skyward Sword HD at 60, which is also a Switch port of a Wii game, so no. Then we have the revamped lighting and improved graphics. Okay. But before I talk about that, I want to mention how in the trailer that showed off the graphical upgrades, they intentionally made the Wii version look bad so that Ultimate looks better by comparison. Because even on the original Wii using composite video cables, the colors and lighting are much more vibrant than this. Anyway, I guess that just doesn't matter. The community seems very split on the graphical changes, and personally, I just think it's hit or miss. For example, Tropical Resort, which I was very disappointed by in the original reveal, is easily the worst looking zone in the game, appearing very dark for no reason. And then there's areas like Aquarium Park that I actually think look pretty nice most of the time, especially in the underwater tunnel sections, and I also think this extends to Sweet Mountain as well. Planet Wisp and Asteroid Coaster generally look fine as well, although the light bridges in Starlight Carnival, while I like the idea of making their light affect the area around it more, I think went a little overboard and is just too bright as it is. Speaking of too bright, I don't really get what's going on with Sonic's model here. I think it's a touched up version of the original model, but it's hard to tell because it looks significantly worse a lot of the time. It's like his body is absorbing the light around him, and it looks really bad. But what's even more baffling about this is that in some instances it looks kinda normal. In the opening animations for a lot of Sweet Mountain and the opening for Planet Wisp Act 3, it looks a lot more natural, so I don't know what's going on that's making it look awful everywhere else. There's also the bloom to worry about, which looks better than it did in the first trailer, but I still think could have been toned down. I don't think it's as overbearing as some make it seem, but it definitely can make the visual presentation messy in quite a number of areas. Honestly, the graphical section that upset me most was in Terminal Velocity Act 1, a stage that I would have said was by far the best looking bit of the game, with some actually improved lighting, is ruined by this 240p ass image in the background. Are you kidding me? Despite how I said that the game looks overall fine and pretty okay in some places, no matter where you go, or what zone you're in, you're bound to run into a ton of these small visual bugs that on their own wouldn't be too bad, but they pile up so much that they just mess up the presentation. To run down a few I noticed, the Ferris wheel in Tropical Resort easily being able to be seen disappearing, these rainbow rings in Planet Wisp also having pop-in issues, invisible walls being placed in new areas to accommodate the new Wisp, but not having any actual walls to show you that it's intentional and not just a glitch, Sonic's starting animation not working properly in Starlight Carnival Act 3, and Hover's animations not working properly in Gameland for some reason. Those are just a few off the top of my head, because if we combed through all of them, we'd be here all day. It's that much of an issue. Then there's the cutscenes, which have been AI upscaled, and on my TV, trust me, I was able to notice it right away from the opening cutscene. It didn't look the best. I was willing to give them the benefit of the doubt that they probably only had access to the video files of the original cutscene, so upscaling them was the best they could do. Until people on Twitter found out all the original cutscene data is intact, meaning that they had no excuse to not recreate the cutscenes fully. Since they're upscaled from the original Wii cutscenes, this also means this creates an inconsistency issue, since now the cutscene visuals fall in line with how the original looked, and the gameplay looks completely different. The most egregious instance of this that I haven't seen anyone else mention is literally right before you fight the final boss. The pre-boss cutscene shows the Nega Wisp armor, seems fine, but then you get into the battle. For some reason they changed the design of the thing, and it now more resembles the look it had in Sonic Colors DS. And I don't even know why they would do that. It's not that it looks bad, in fact I for one prefer this look, it just doesn't make sense and now it just calls more attention to the obvious cutscene to gameplay disparity. Next we'll tackle the auditory presentation, which is much in the same camp as the visual presentation. The main selling point here are the remixes. The 3-act themes of each zone got remixes to them, and I quite like how they're implemented. Instead of having the 3 themes be used for 2 acts each, now the 3 original themes for the zone playing acts 4, 5, and 6, and the remixes of each of the zone themes playing acts 1, 2, and 3. And I think for the most part, they sound really good. The only ones I can point to for me personally not enjoying them are the Planet Wisp remixes and how they're a little too high energy for Planet Wisp. Oh yeah, speaking of the Planet Wisp remixes, for some reason that I'll never understand, they aren't available by default in the base game. That'll be an extra $5 for that privilege. I just don't get it, and honestly this strikes me as really greedy and stupid. Anyway, a lot of people really wanted a toggle to have the original soundtracks, and even though I think their implementation is so good that I don't have that big of a need for it, it would have been nice to at least have the option, especially since it probably would have been easy seeing as Planet Wisp has no problems playing only the originals when you don't have the DLC. Next we got audio oddities and glitches. One of the most prevalent being the bad audio balancing, like it's trying to be some good competition with the HD port of SA2, it's really bad. The one I noticed most was when you get that perfect homing attack. The noise is quite a bit louder than I think it was meant to be, and of course everyone points out the example in Asteroid Coaster, as they should, it's awful. This isn't helped by sound effects also randomly cutting out whenever they feel like it. I feel this most happened with checkpoints and springs in my experience, and I can't even figure out what causes it to happen. Of course, the obvious option is just to mess around with the music and sound effects settings until it's desirable for me, but that leads into the problem of there only being one slider for both music and sound effects, which is so baffling to me because I feel like having them as separate options is Design 101, and it's unbelievable that it isn't available for you to mess with. One of the audio glitches I ran into most often, though, is the music just cutting out. I can't remember it happening with stage music, but it did happen quite a few times with Wisp music. I think it might have happened in the selection screen a few times. Hell, before I could even get into the first stage, I exited out of the options menus, and the title screen music just didn't play, which didn't leave me in the highest of spirits to complete the rest of the game, as you can probably imagine. Oh yeah, and also if you're using headphones, sound effects love bouncing between sides, and it's aggravating to listen to, and I am honestly convinced that literally nobody in development listened to it firsthand to think it was okay to leave it in. Putting aside those, there's also just some random gameplay and miscellaneous glitches. I saw a few, notably in one section. For some reason, Hover doesn't like going across this ring trail, and so you can't even get to the end of it before the button's timer expires. I don't have these recorded, but when I was playing the game on my own time going for 100%, there were times where the game would freeze up for a few seconds and thankfully didn't crash and it would fix itself, but it was still annoying and shouldn't be happening. There was also this really weird glitch where whenever something would happen that would make my controller rumble, it would rumble super hard and then the rumble wouldn't work until I turned off my controller and turned it back on again. And this kept happening until I closed out the game completely and opened it back up, which I know it's a trivial thing, but I've still never seen this happen before, and I don't know why it's happening to begin with. Oh yeah, speaking of the rumble, leaving it on and using the drill wisp pretty much turns your controller into a free vibrator with how hard that thing is shaking. Thank you, Sega. Oh yeah, on top of that, any added graphics or menus that weren't in the original are awful. There's the pop-up for the rival races where Metal Sonic tries to give you a computer virus. The opening and ending graphics are extremely lazy and slapped together, not helped by the fact that the accompanying music doesn't even play half the time. The worst offender is the new menu for the options satellite, where you go to the customization, stats, supersonic, and options screens. Firstly, the game stutters a bit each time you flick through the options. The music restarts whenever you enter a submenu, and then restarts again when you exit the submenu, which is actually shocking how obvious it is that that shouldn't happen. And the cutscenes only play in this small box, which is also surprising given how it should be a given that you don't do this. That being said, I am happy I got this game on Xbox, because the type of shit I've seen going down on other platforms is appalling. The main deal on PlayStation seems to be people having their save files get corrupted, which I imagine was a nightmare for people in the middle of going for 100%. People on Switch though, God I pray for you. The Switch version consistently crumbles under the pressure of being alive. They should have called this version Sonic Too Many Fucking Colors, with the amount of glitches that could potentially cause epilepsy. I'm not going to show it for obvious reasons, but it is upsetting. Thankfully, just a bit after I finished writing the script, they put out a patch that fixes the seizure-inducing bugs and have plans for future patches on other consoles, but that still doesn't excuse all the other shit going on here, and especially doesn't excuse the state that this game was released in the first place. Lastly, we talk about the new stuff they added in. Can it salvage the brokenness of everything surrounding it? No, not really, but that doesn't mean it's all bad. To start with my favorite addition, there's now cosmetic options. Scattered around the levels are these park tokens, and you're able to use these in the shop to buy different stuff for you to wear and use. There's gloves, shoes, boost effects, particle effects, and profile icons. Some pretty cool stuff if you ask me. Personally, I will admit I'm a bit of a purist. I don't like messing with the colors of Sonic's gloves and shoes, but it's cool that we have the option at all, and even then I do really like the boost and particle effects. You can also compete in the new rival races. Now, initially when I talked about this game, I was confused why in the initial trailer they didn't highlight the rival races as a big new feature being added to the game, and after playing them firsthand, I understand why. There is nothing interesting going on here at all. After collecting half the red rings in each zone, you unlock the Metal Sonic race for that zone, and yes, I said there's only one per zone, so 6 in total. How disappointing. This is basically just you versus a time trial ghost race, just since it isn't a ghost version of Sonic, it's Metal Sonic. It's extremely apparent when platform cycles don't sync up between the two of you and he just goes. The main point to this is that when you beat him, you get a large sum of park tokens. Oh, excuse me, park token. Beating all the races gives you new boost and particle effect, okay? A lot of people were saying, why weren't you able to unlock the ability to play as Metal Sonic, and I completely agree. In fact, from what I've seen, some people have found out that there's data to suggest Metal Sonic was gonna be unlockable, but was cut, because of course it was. The main big new thing is supposed to be this new Jade Ghost Wisp that allows you to fly around, cling onto these little warp balls, and cling onto enemies as well, and when you cling onto enemies it refills your meter. It's mainly used for accessing some new areas to find additional goodies, mainly park tokens, but they did actually move around some red ring placements to make it so that you now need to use the ghost to grab them, which I actually quite like. Helps spice things up, if only a little bit. The Wisp does suffer from glitches the most, though, from what I've noticed. Not in how it actually plays, but it feels like a lot of the areas were just slapped in there with no regard for pop-in or having properly conveyed collision. Finally, the smallest new addition, Tail Save. Easily the most pointless mechanic, if you ask me. Basically, lives were replaced by tail saves, and you can find them lying around in the levels. If you fall down a pit, he'll use a tail save, and he'll put you back on the last solid ground you touched after way too long of just sitting there waiting for you to be put down. Not only is it redundant, because I thought Sonic Colors difficulty was just fine without it, but it also makes things a little too easy for my taste, and in some instances completely botches the challenge of getting certain red rings and even S ranks sometimes. And it also makes checkpoints relatively pointless, considering the only reason you'll ever need to use them is if you get killed by an enemy, which is a rare occurrence in this game. Now to say the thing that Colors Ultimate defenders dread hearing. Compare this to Dolphin. Now, I myself haven't personally played the game enhanced on Dolphin, since I had some trouble finding a good ROM to use, but I have seen it, and yeah, it looks really nice, just Sonic Colors as it was in 4K and 60 FPS. That's all I really need here. The thing that baffles me the most about this remaster is that that's all you needed to do. Just bump up the resolution and frame rate and maybe include those remixes and cosmetic items, and the game would be perfectly fine. I mean, I know game development isn't a cakewalk, I really do, but how can you mess up a remaster of a game that was already really good like this? I mean, what is this, Silent Hill HD Collection? Yeah, that was an easy jab. Unfortunately, I just can't recommend Sonic Colors Ultimate. If you're still considering picking up the game, I still advise you to not gag on Switch, because while all the epileptic glitches were patched out, it's still easily the buggiest out of the different platforms. And as I mentioned earlier, they have made a statement saying that they plan on putting out patches to fix things, and if you're still curious, I'd say wait and see how that turns out. Hell, maybe if I'm really feeling it, I'll make a follow-up video if I feel the patch really gives some meaningful discussion, but probably not. But definitely playing on Dolphin, even better if you're able to use those hacks to up the resolution and all that jazz. Heck, the Wii game is floating around on eBay right now for less than this remaster would run you, so if you have a Wii or Wii U laying around, it's not a bad option either. And with that, that brings us to the end of this little detour, so with that, I hope you enjoyed the video, take care, and I will see you all later.